Welcome to the Millennials and Community Podcast. On this week's episode, join Matt and Carlo as they interview their fathers, getting perspective on career, relationships, and what we were like as kids. Join us for this special two-part episode to see how far the apple falls from the tree. Thank you for being part of our community. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right, man of confidence.
That's right.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to another and a very special episode of the Millennials and Community Podcast. My name is Matt. With us is Carlo, and we're joined by two exceptionally special guests. We are on this episode, in fact, joined by our dads. So really happy to welcome to the podcast Tom Leung and Nino Corrado. Gentlemen, really happy to have you both here.
Good to be here. Good to meet both of you.
Yes.
And the father of the partner, of course.
Of course.
We had to finally break a kind of an unspoken rule. This is the Millennials and Community Podcast, and I think you two are the first non-millennials to be on the show. So whether you should be honored or scared, I'll leave that up to you as the episode devolves.
But this is also our third episode with guests, and they say third time's the charm. So really, we're just going to be batting 1,000 here. So we like to, on this podcast, start us off with a little bit of an icebreaker and get us all set up into the conversation. And so we wanted to turn our icebreaker to the two of you, our dads, to kick us off. Something that we as our audience will know about Carlo and I is that both of us are very proud, or not too proud, to admit that we have a little bit of an ego. And I don't know about you, Carlo, but I certainly am very proud to say that this is maybe something that I might have gotten from my dad. So maybe I'll start with you, and to Tom. What was it like to be a father to such an exceptional young person growing up?
Well, it's always good to see that apple did not fall too far from the tree, and that might be incriminating myself here, but, we live in a very complicated world nowadays. And if you lack a strong sense of self-confidence, and you're not going to go very far in this world. So I'm proud to say that you, Matt, my son, has developed certainly a healthy sense of ego, to put it in a very beneficial way. And without the sense of self-confidence, right, you really would be very difficult to walk the road that life is putting in front of you now. So I'm glad to see that, and I certainly would not take the full credit for the full scale of ego that you seem to possess, and some of the stunts and some of the level of confidence even surprised me. So certainly just from that standpoint, I can't possibly take full credit.
It's the same kind of question to you, Dad. How does it feel to have just such wonderful offspring that is I?
Do I need to agree with that? Or?
We invited you on the show. We didn't make you sign an NDA. You do whatever you like.
No, it's great to see what your children can turn out to be as they grow up and mature and become their own individuals. Carlo's kind of a mixture of my wife and I. He's the nerd part is from me. The rest outgoing and street smarts and is from his mom. So it's kind of a mixture. He's grown up to be I guess you could say a good kid. He's never been in trouble or anything like that. But he's a very intelligent young man. And I think that he got from me some, not sure how, because he never did see me, but somehow it kind of migrated to him. So it's interesting to watch and to see him develop for sure.
Love that. I thought we set you both up with that one to say some slanderous things about us, but I guess maybe we're just warming up a little bit still.
You got to give him time.
That's coming up. Don't you worry.
Okay, perfect. Good. I'd hate to think that we were all going to be really nice and kind to each other. For this one, I'd love to start, Nino, with you. I'm curious, you touched a little bit on the similarities between you and Carlo. What would you say, looking back to your your younger days, I suppose, where, you see the younger version of yourself in Carlo as he's grown up?
I think the younger version is of him kind of learning as he goes. Like, all I ever did was teach him how to program the timer on the VCR, right? And then he took over. After he put the peanut butter sandwich inside the VCR, he kind of said, "Hey, I'm taking over now," because I had enough of him. So he started programming that, and then he turned into this computer wizard that I'm not sure who he is. But yeah, I just think learning and always wanting to learn is what he got from me, and just trying things and knowing that you can, if you make a mistake, you can fix it, right? So just not being afraid to try new things, I think that's what he got from me. I never really looked too far in the future. I just usually jumped into things and hoped for the best. And some worked out, some didn't work out so well. But I think if you have that attitude, and I think he does, you'll get far in life.
And it's funny, and I think I've shared this story on a past episode, but a few years back, we were learning how to do stamped concrete in my dad's backyard patio. And I remember looking at him going like, we've never done this before. The only instruction we've got is like some YouTube videos. What if we screw up? And he looks me straight in the eyes, no hesitation whatsoever. He says, if we screw it up, we tear it up and we try again. And it sounds so simplistic and so logical, but at the same time, we have this like perfection paralysis that keeps us from even starting things. And one thing I've always really admired about this guy over here is that he just kind of starts and I don't think it's ever turned out so terrible he had to tear it out again. But yeah, I would agree. I would definitely say I get the triad mentality from you.
Good.
And Dad, similar question to you. I'm curious, what do you see of yourself in me as you've watched me grow up?
I don't think I actually mentioned this explicitly to you in any conversations, but certainly as I was watching you grow up and, family circumstances dictate that, I left you in Calgary, when you're very young, and I was in Vancouver. But one thing I always stressed from remote, and certainly when we get a chance to visit, is to carry a strong sense of curiosity, right? And even when you're young, it's not something I hammer into you and say you have to be curious and so on, but you actually develop a very innate sense of that, right? Now, that is so important for any young person out there, this strong sense of curiosity, be it relates to everything in the world around you, the eagerness to learn. It may or may not even be part of your career or eventual career, but just be curious of everything in the world that's around you, right? Seek out what you believe to be the truth and discern what could well be noise out there, right? And I'm certainly happy to say now, looking back at your 30-odd years of life, that you do have, developed that strong sense of curiosity. And be it the world around us, be it travel, other country, you're an avid traveler. And maybe that's something that certainly we can get into a little bit later on. And I know this is one of your strongest pursuits, right? In terms of traveling, in terms of learning another culture, other places in the world, this curiosity of what makes other people tick, right? And again, another thing that comes with curiosity is the sense of empathy with other people, right? That you come to meet, and be it very high level people, be it politicians or captains of industry, what have you. All that's important, but just equally important, talking to every people from every walk of life, right? Somebody you perceive that perhaps is not in the same social circle, but you still make them feel very comfortable. So from that standpoint, I think it is such a rewarding experience watching you attain that level of curiosity over time.
It's really cool. And you're right. You haven't ever said that to me, at least in so many words. And so what I think is so neat in hearing that is that curiosity is something that I'm so proud of and I stand by. And I've talked about a lot on this podcast in many different contexts. I've talked about how important curiosity is in terms of supporting growth and development for those people that work with children. I've talked about it with regards to thinking about global affairs or politics and understanding that a sense of curiosity is so important for triangulating the best sources of information around you, and so I wasn't expecting you to say that at all. And I'm really, really excited that you did.
Well, it's a common root, right? Once you start going from curiosity to the attempt to learn, and then from there you lead to the need for communication. And then when you communicate, whether with people or absorbing things that's all around you, it goes into your memory bank, if you will. And that goes to dictate how you react to certain situations, again, with people or situations or circumstances, right? It is the root of all good things in life, this healthy sense of curiosity.
So I feel like the answers we got out of both of you were wonderful, and I truly enjoyed that. My father doesn't compliment me all that often. But
it's still early in the show.
No, I'm aware. But that's something that you see in us that you had in yourselves growing up that you're maybe proud of, or you think that was a good thing to pass along. Just on a high level, what do you think might be something that, again, you see, in us that you had in yourselves, but maybe you wish we hadn't picked up on? Something that maybe we had left in the prior generation. Tom, you got anything that comes to mind?
A true investigative reporter here, looking at digging up dirt. No, thinking back, just a couple of things that were very important in my life. And one is academics. The other one is music, of all things. And maybe a little bit lesser degree, sports, right? And, in my growing up and also up until maybe 10, 15 years ago, I was an avid diver, a technical diver. So, it's not something that I instill in Matt. And again, we never really spent too much time together based on circumstances. When he was growing up, I was in Vancouver and he was back in Calgary. But as he was growing up, he was always, growing up a little bit on the sensitive side, right? And back then, when he was growing up, initially he was a fairly, shall we say, chubby kid, and that spawned a whole level of needs and activities through various sports and so on. And so he became a great athlete. But I can tell you, when he was, I think it might be 7, 8, 9, 10, that type of thing, and he was certainly not what I call a prototypical athlete. Let's put it that way. He's a chubby kid and so on. And sometimes he would get picked on in school and so on. But I think that is really sharpened him to really take the lessons of life, right, and try to make it better. So he's developed into actually a very, very strong musician. And I don't know if you actually realize that about him. You may well know that he is a good athlete, a good dancer, of all things, right? And that's quite the scene when he's on the dance floor. And I can tell, right? And somehow he's become a strong magnet for women. I can only admire him from afar, of course, but all the ladies seems to crowd towards him, right? And so I never say it, I watch him with a high degree of jealousy to a certain extent. So that is something that he actually never got from me. But just a small degree of that hopefully is coming from the music rhythm that he picked up, through the bloodline. But having said all this, there is really nothing surprising or something bad that he picked up from me. Well, maybe there is a few things in terms of pursuit of the ultimate. That is, you don't give up, right? And then you tend to keep on going until you clearly get slammed in the face. No, you can't go there. Or sometimes, when he was a kid, he might throw a bit of a tantrum because clearly whatever he wants may not be bad for him, or we couldn't afford it, or things like that. So it's not really atypical of any kid out there, right? So, in terms of really bad habits that he might have picked up from me and so on, Maybe the sense of impatience. Yeah, that should be one. But that's part and parcel to having a strong ego or strong sense of self-confidence, right? You definitely want to achieve something, and you want to achieve it quickly with minimal amount of pushback, right? So I don't think he has failed in that regard, and everything he has set out to do seems to have met the mark. So I wouldn't classify that necessarily as a bad thing.
There was so much said there. I'm going to be processing that for like the next 10 minutes. It's great.
I was going to say, it's quite an amount of ammunition you just handed Carlo for the next time we're getting together for beers. So thanks for that. But Nino, same to you. Now it's your turn to give me something to work with here. What are some things that Carlo picked up on that you wish he wouldn't have, or something that he did and you can't for the life you figure out how it could have come from your offspring?
I'm not sure there was anything that he picked up. He might have picked up some things from his grandfather. When he was little, he would hang around with my dad a lot. So every time we went to visit, he would take him, and they would disappear in the basement for like an hour or so, not really knowing what they were doing. But I found out that they went down to where the wine was, and they would take sips out of the jugs together, and have a good time. But my dad had a short temper, and he could get very angry for no reason and stuff like that. And I'm not saying Carlo's like that, but he does have a little bit of that, and I think he got it from my dad.
Not your wife.
Well, it could have been a mixture of my wife and dad, because I'm surrounded by them. So, so that a little bit of a trait. He does tend to manage it well, though. Like it's not that he flies off the handle or anything like that, but you can tell that he's upset over something. He doesn't really let it out. He'll manage it, and he'll stay professional about it, which is good, because you need to do that nowadays, I think. And even though you may not agree with something, he still shows respect and everything for the other person. And you can agree to disagree, right? So he's good at that. He's good at working with people, even though they may not be professional. He is. And he's really good at telling somebody where to go professionally. I don't think they even knew that he told them where to go until they get home and realize what he said. But I think that's a good trait. But I think you need to have a little bit of that in you, right? You can't be passive and easygoing on everything. There's a point where you need to bring that out and use that. So even though it's a bad trait, I think if you use it professionally and when it's needed, I think it turns out to be a good trait, right?
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more. And certainly another trait that perhaps Matt and I share is a strong sense of opinion, right? I think it's sad in life. Anyone can go through life being passive and without having a strong stance on critical issues, right? And with Matt, you will not be lacking in that side of things. So he does certainly does have a very certainly more educated than me, strong sense of opinion, good and bad, on various important issues. So, and that's good. We've had many strong debates, right, on different sides of particular issues. And I'm happy to say, though, most of his arguments or opinions are actually well formulated, right? And sometimes I would have to go against my better judgment just to argue with the kid, because I just need to put him in his place, right? Even though I know I'm wrong, but I like to think that I'm a little bit better orator than he, but that is starting to prove me wrong as well.
So beating me on technicalities, you finally admitted it.
Technically correct, which is the best kind of correct.
Yeah, well, make sure you edit that part out, because I think I just slipped up by admitting my own weakness here.
So I think... Go ahead.
I was going to say we better take that time to shift into a different segment, though. But Carlo, go ahead. You look like you had
I was
another
going to
question.
say that leads us kind of into our next topic really, really nicely, because I know that you and I have a lot of conversations about what I think is going on in the world and what you think is going on in the world. And a lot of those conversations are very different opinions, whether it be politics or things going on in the world or just day-to-day life. We have these very differing opinions, yet we still live what I would say is somewhat similar lives. So I think a really cool topic of conversation, again, maybe just to start on a high level, is what do you think, and Tom, we'll start with you, what are some really key differences that you have noticed generationally between your guys' generation and us as millennials? Anything pop out at you right away?
Yeah, there are so many issues where you can actually put the generational divide on it, right? Number one, obviously the advent of technology, right? The internet and so on, where it comes down to the level of communication, right? And the ability to write properly for kids nowadays. The way I look at it, that's one thing that I have hammered Matt ever since he was a very young kid, is the need to write and express properly through writing, verbally, and of course, the written side. And now I had the good fortune of hiring many younger people for my company. And they would come out with a lot of letters behind their names, right? Masters and MAs and MBAs and so on. But without exception, every single one of them could not write properly, not a one. So that kind of begs you to wonder, what exactly do they teach them at school, right? And I think a lot of issues in the world today is just a lack of good communication skills. And when you take a look at some of the younger people, their interpretation of what good writing is their speed of pounding out 5 words on Instagram, right? And so from my standpoint, that is certainly a crime nowadays, that kids cannot communicate properly. So that's one thing. And there are a lot of other issues as well. And nowadays, certainly what I've observed, the younger generation, there seems to be a complete lack of patience in terms of things that you should really earn through the passage of time, right? Whether it's material goods or knowledge and so on. Obviously with the internet, you want everything right now, right? And then there's no sense of patience or proper process of earning whatever that you really want, right? So you definitely see that today, whether you get your first job out of university in terms of level of pay, or that you think too highly of your own self skills, right? When you walk into a job interview and you demand certain level of pay and so on. So, in terms of kids nowadays, make no mistake, they certainly know what they want. They're highly intelligent. But I would like to think that back in the time that I was growing up, there was a sense of, order, if you will. You go from step one, and then if you're good at it, and then if you're really good at it, you might be given the opportunity to go to the next step. But now younger people seems to want to go from step 1 to step 6, for example, in the shortest period of time, right? So, and even in terms of, the notion of wealth, right? Making money, to support family and so on. There doesn't seem to be the understanding that you must develop your knowledge, what you're particularly good at, and make sure it is, fitting what society wants you to do and so on. They always want to have the quick way out, be it Bitcoin or let's get into cannabis and so make $1 million tomorrow and so on, right? So again, just to wrap it up, it's really the sense of patience, right? In terms of earning your way into the world, right? There doesn't seem to be that. And I think they seem to live for the moment and trying to get everything from an instant gratification standpoint. So again, there's so much to expand on, right? It's such a broad question, right? But that is something that immediately pops into my mind.
And that's a really interesting viewpoint that I definitely have some comments on, but I want to give a couple opportunities for other people to speak first. Matt, you had something to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that certainly you won't find Carlo or I arguing with you in terms of the effects of technology on what is done to attention spans or levels of entitlement. And I think that broadly, technology has brought us so many great things in terms of bringing the global community closer together. And yet it does lead to some of these significant challenges, whether it be around attention span, entitlement, and some of these other sorts of things that you indicated. I think that's so true. But Nino, what would you add? What do you see as some of the big differences between generations?
I think the education system, like when I went through school, there wasn't really anything that was brought up that was controversial. It was just basically, you learn your basic schooling and you just go get a job and go to work, right? Where now I think they're trying to influence the kids as they're going through school a certain way that I don't really agree with. And they're using that without really, it's almost like the parents don't have control of what they're being taught in school. And that kind of bothers me, right? Because kids should make their own decisions when they're old enough to make that decision. And when I kind of started working, I didn't really expect anything from anybody. I thought, go to work. If you work hard, you're going to do well in life and hopefully become wealthy. That's true in one sense, but you have to pick the right industry too. If you pick the right industry and you work hard, you're going to become very wealthy. But if you pick the wrong industry, even if you start your own business, you might be self-employed all your life. You're never able to turn it into a business that will flourish, even if you walk away, right? So in that sense, and there's so much more opportunity now, I think, to become an entrepreneur in various degrees. And just if you find something that you're passionate about and you work hard, and it's not really work, and you'll end up becoming very successful, right? So, and technology is added a big degree that you could become successful online, not even leaving your house, right? So in my day, that wasn't around. You had to physically get up and put your 12, 14 hours a day in physically to build a business, right? And there wasn't any information anywhere. Nobody was going to share the information with you. Everybody was really like your competitor instead of your ally, where now I think that's a lot more achievable now, I think. It's a lot easier, I would think. The problem is that I don't know if the millennials want to be entrepreneurs. Some do maybe, but I'm not sure how many take advantage of what they have. I believe that hard work is the only way to do it, and whether you're successful or not, at least you can look back and say, I worked hard for it. Whatever happened, I'm still proud of it, right?
Yep.
But I think the millennials need to work a little bit harder. I'm not sure if that's true. Probably not for everybody, but I think if they were to, they would have a great life.
Yep.
So I want to pick up on that, because I think that's really interesting. And it's certainly, I think, something that's really commonly heard is that, and I'm not disagreeing, I just want to dive in a little bit more, that the younger generations, millennials, Gen Z, have this entitlement that Dad, you talked about, leads to, maybe a less of a desire to roll up your sleeves and do the hard work because you want things to come fast. You want them to come easy. What I'm curious, though, is what sorts of an impact you see that having. So when you see or feel or get the sense that younger generations are not willing to work as hard, what sorts of an impact is that making on society? What's the effect or the consequence that this is having in the community around us?
That also is a loaded question. It's more a sociological question as well, right? As well as economic. But this lack of sense of discipline, right? And it is so important. It goes to the productivity of the individual. Unfortunately, or fortunately nowadays, and as Nino has pointed out, is the age of instant gratification, where if you stumble onto the right thing without a lot of hard work, you keep hearing stories how kids now can make a million or become instant millionaires, right? Just because they are good at technology, and then somehow they stumble onto a different thing that the society seems to value at that point in time. But again, just the younger generation, this easy come, and I don't know if you folks actually caught that in the news. It just came out last week, I think, where there was some type of survey. I don't know if it was by the bank or what have you, where a lot of young people now, when asked the question, what type of inheritance are you expecting to get from your parents, right? And the average number came out to more than six figures, right? And that just boggles my mind. Now, maybe it's just my own upbringing. I have blue-collar working parents, right? It was incredibly fortunate just for them to work a number of different jobs to put a roof on our heads, right? So from our standpoint, the mere thought of having inheritance, well, that's unheard of, and you'd be lucky if you are able to go to school, university, and so on, right? And that's really as much as the parents should be able to give the kids these good sense of education. But now there seems to be this expectation, right? That, well, if I wait long enough, the parents will buy the house, or certainly give us a very big part of the down payment, if you will. So, I'm not saying that applies to anybody we know, or certainly you two, and so on. But certainly it happens in society where a general national survey provides an answer reflecting that, right? So just a sense of again, discipline, and a sense of realistic expectation and so on. It's just too much, too soon, too fast. And there has to be a day of reckoning where, as you mentioned earlier, it's finding a job that you truly love and put in the strong effort and building something that you're proud of, and then see that business unfold itself and bear fruit, and then you can honestly say, I enjoy the ride, right? And I'm at 62 now, contemplating retirement, and I can honestly look back and just saying I did not take the easy way out, right? And that I've built something that I could be proud of. And someday soon, hopefully, I can take Matt, to see some of the projects that we worked on around the world, right? And so it is that's part of the legacy that I'm truly looking forward to. And it's not anything relating to numbers or dollars or anything like that at all. It is the experience that hopefully I can, pass on to Matt, right? In terms of the various people that I've met through the life, through my career, and certainly some of the business dealings, right? The experiences and how to treat people, and how to properly resolve situations, right? And difficult situations and so on, so that everything works out in your favor, right? And that's around the world, and people by and large are very similar that way. So there is a sense of a formula for success, if you will. So hopefully that will pass on to Matt in due course.
Well, I think that's really, really fantastic to hear that. And I see that, and I've seen that throughout your career, Dad, is that your sense of drive to create something that you can be proud of first, and then hopefully by proxy, others around you, your family and so on, are able to be proud of, has been so strong. And it's interesting because what I hear from you is to say that the younger generations maybe don't have the same drive to create that legacy because they're in a rush to get to that, again, to your point, to the next step, right? They're in a rush to do the next thing that society has prescribed for them to do. And I think that's a really, really well worded
Well, I think part and parcel too is this day and age, there are so many opportunities out there, right? There's so many different jobs waiting for people. So they don't really need to finally hone the craft that they are faced with right then and there, right? So if somehow things are not coming as fast as they would like, it's very easily for them to change jobs, right? And onto something else. But what they will find is they will keep on hopping from job to job, right? The degree of self-satisfaction will never ever come if you keep on doing it that way. So, which is sad, for younger people nowadays that really have that type of attitude.
Anything you want to add there, Dad?
About what the generation?
About anything.
Yeah. I think too the millennials need to worry about a lot more than what we did. It's like what's happening in the world right now. It almost makes the younger generation think, well, is it worth building a business? Is it worth having a family? Is it worth doing anything? Because if you listen to some people, the world is going to come to an end soon, so why bother, right? So I think as we were growing up too, there was all kinds of things we heard on the news too, saying, the world's coming to an end for this reason or that reason, or this is happening or that's happening. I think the millennials need to put all of that aside and just build their life anyways, and ignore all the noise. It's like investing in the stock market, and ignore the noise and look at the basics. Look at the truths. Just go build your life and build the best you can, and have fun doing it and enjoy the ride. Right?
Yeah.
Enjoy the journey.
How do you create your own sense of value, right? That is important for you, right? And how do you see the world and what is worthwhile for you? And it may or may not be measured in monetary terms. So it's something that the young people need to understand that first. And as you rightfully said, if you did pick the right work or way to live and so on, the rewards will come naturally. It will.
So Matt and I are kind of giggling to ourselves here because value is practically a slogan for this show. We talk about it all the time. We talk about it being a centering principle for a lot of the things that we do. And I find it super interesting that you guys have brought this into the conversation. For me, what I want to do is kind of take the opportunity to provide a little bit of the millennial lens pushback on this, because I'm the devil's advocate of this show. Matt will know that firsthand. And again, I think a lot of the things that you say are very valid points. And what I would say back to that, you say, hey, it seems like millennials are trying to rush to get to a point where maybe they haven't put their due time in to get there. And my instant rebuttal is, well, millennials are actually the first generation to not be as far along as our parents at the same age. And for whatever reason that may be, I think we look back at the success that a lot of our parents and our grandparents had throughout their lives. Like, speaking on a familial sense, I'm 33, not married, I don't have kids. By the time you were 33, did you have all three of us at that point?
3 kids, more,
right?
Yeah.
Business, owned a home, right? So we look at this and we go, yes, we have to put in our due time, but at the same time, we feel like we are falling behind. And you made the comment about, swapping industries, swapping employers all the time. I think a big part of that, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I tend to stay in the businesses and the employers that I have for quite a while. But there's, again, this sense of, well, do I stay here knowing that if I move every few years, it will help accelerate my career? Because that's where we're at now. You can't work for 40 to 45 years for the same organization anymore and realistically seem to walk away with the same quality, no pension, raises stop after a while, et cetera, et cetera. So do I stick in this one place, or do I hop around hoping that will be the one thing that propels me to a level of success where I feel I can be at least on par with where my parents were at my age, right? So, Dad, I don't think you're wrong. This idea of everything weighing down on us. And this is kind of the last point I would want to make. You guys did not have social media, right? You weren't constantly comparing your lives against the lives of everybody else's, and most importantly, the highlight reel of everybody else's life. So, when we look on social media and we see our friend from high school who's created this business, Bitcoin or whatever, we're sitting here going, what the heck am I doing with my life? Well, back in your guys' day, you might have heard through the grapevine that someone was doing well, but you weren't seeing the photos of the trips they were going on and the house they live in and the wife and the kids they have. Like it's just a little bit of a different lens. And I'm not saying one was right and one was wrong or one's better, etc. It's just, to me, it's such an interesting parallel between the two, because it seems like we almost want the same things, but the road to get there feels so drastically different.
So I find that really interesting because, and I think that there's a difference in perception around the level of opportunity that exists. And I think for a lot of millennials, it's seen as there just isn't the opportunity to succeed. There isn't the opportunity to get ahead. But I think that the opposite is probably more accurate, that there's in fact more opportunities, more different ways to succeed and be successful. I think that's also a part of the reason why people jump around, is there's this innate feeling of the grass being greener, which is fueled by a lot of, you see this on social media, you see these people succeeding. For those listening, I'm using air quotations because, of course, social media very rarely is a full sense of reality. But when we see these things, we get the sense that there's more opportunity out there for us that we try to pursue. And I think that is maybe done at the expense of the legacy, right? And Carlo, I think you're getting at more of the monetary challenges that our generation faces. But I think that from purely a legacy and a self-fulfillment lens, there are other aspects to it that are not solely tied to the financial.
Yeah, let me jump in at that. And I get what you're saying. But I think probably what you're talking about is a bit of an illusion, if you will. Recall when we first started this conversation a few minutes ago, I just made the one quotation that everything is in life is about marketing. And it really is. And so what you see in the media and so on, why are you seeing the particular videos and so on? They are conveying a message to convince you of a particular position, right? Whether they want money from you or you want to take a course from them, because boy, if you take a 2-week course from me, I will promise you instant riches of day trading and so on, right? And so everything in life now, and admittingly, life today through internet and the media and technology has gotten a lot faster. You can see the results of maybe the 1% of success in the world a lot faster, instantaneously, right? So you aim to achieve that. If you're not part of the success, somehow you are failing yourself and your family and all your friends, right? And so there is that sense of comparison. But I can tell you for a fact, that for every one success stories that you see out there, one Bitcoin billionaire that you see out there, there are also at least 99 other Bankman-Frieds of the world that's comfortably in jail right now. Right. So, and also a lot of other failures, they tend to fade into the obscurity, of time. Right. So nobody's going to bring that up. So when you basically, the masses trying to compare themselves to that top 1% or that lucky 1%, I think you're not doing yourself a big favor. But I think what might be more interesting in terms of a lateral comparison to your cohorts that you see in multimedia or social media and so on, is that you should maybe do a more of a vertical comparison. Take a look at how your dad, your father, built his life. Admittingly, jobs are different and so on, but the process is still more or less the same. You still have to work hard. You have to apply your intelligence and your whatever talent do you have garnered over time, maybe through school and your own interests and hobbies and so on, right? The process has not changed. right? So from that standpoint, maybe readjust your lens of comparison. Who are you matching your scope of success to? I would look at my father. Am I doing better than my father? Yes, right? Do I want Matt to one day be far more successful than I ever could dream of? Absolutely. But that comparison is, based on history and where he came from, right? And that's what you should look at rather than somebody else, another family, in another country that may be the son of an oil baron in Saudi Arabia and so on. How can you possibly make a proper comparison that way, right? And that you see every day, right? In Dubai, Saudi Arabia, people drive fast cars, and so on. So are you going to try to compare yourself to them, right? I think that's an appropriate comparison. And the multimedia actually helps you making that inappropriate comparison. So I think the one thing is embrace your own family, take a look at where your roots are from. And if you are doing actually better than your father, and I hope he wishes you to be doing much better than he ever did, and so on, and he should, then you would have met success, right? That is probably, in my mind, a better measure of success rather than a lateral comparison.
See, and I absolutely love this, and it's so insightful, because I think what you're getting at is this idea that so many people spend so much time complaining that they are not as privileged as others. And in fact, just a few episodes ago, we talked at length about privilege and the things that lead into one's identity that contribute to this perceived sense of privilege. What I think, though, you're talking about is again, keeping those blinders on has really been a theme of our episode so far. Keeping those blinders on, putting your head down, and realizing who are you doing this for? And so often the answer is going to be your family, your close-knit circles, those people close to you that you care about. And really at the end of, when the summation of life is complete, we should be in a position where we're creating things for our loved ones and those around us. Any other additional legacy that might spill over the edge of the teacup is a bonus. Any surplus at that point is bonus. But really, what is most meaningful and most impactful is the legacy that we're leaving for our generations. So we should measure by that same measuring stick, which would be the generations that come before us. I think that's wonderful.
Look for the value in life lessons, right? Whether something I did wrong or right through my life, and hopefully I can pass that on to Matt, or Matt himself can observe it, and so on, right? To me, that is actually the true measure of inheritance, right? For good, for the better, or for worse, and rather than strictly from a quantitative or a monetary. That's even worse from a monetary perspective, right? And saying, well, I got nothing, and so on, is really what the experience you have gained over time, right? From your family, and particularly from father to son. That is so important in my mind.
Hey there, guys. It's Carlo here. I want to thank you for joining us for part 1 of what is a 2-part series with our dads. This episode never really started out as a way to honor our dads, considering how close it is to Father's Day. But it was something that just worked out so well in timing and was such an amazing thing to listen to and to be a part of. It's so rare to get your dads to open up and tell you some of those things. And it only took getting them both in the same virtual room to do it. So thank you for joining us for part 1. Part 2 will be out in 2 weeks' time. We hope that you enjoyed this and you get excited about it. And if you did, I would ask you to share a clip, share the episode, or do any of those other things that people do on YouTube, like follow, share, subscribe, etc. So I want to thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in a little bit.